Hello, and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview. This is a show where we take a look at what's coming in the current edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Tanya Schrum, and we are joined by managing editor for the North Coast Journal. You know her, you love her, Jennifer Fumiko Cahill.
I like how you have the enforced love there.
There's no forcing love for
There's
you,
no
Jennifer.
choice. You must love me. It's good to see you, Tanya, as always.
As always, another fine week in paradise.
As every week. It's a rainy paradise, but I will take it. Apparently the water is cresting to the Fern Bridge, but not going over, so gonna call ourselves lucky.
Yeah. I kind of had that feeling this morning as my front tires also were visible again. So I was like, Manila, absorb the water. We'll wait for the next squall. And with that, we've got a break in the weather and we've got news on the table. Jennifer, you brought us a fantastic cover story, and let's discuss it.
So I have been wanting to write about Siren Song, the Siren Song Tavern, for a while now, and I have been talking to the owner, Liza Sibley, for a few months, and this week we finally got the story of the Siren Song moving into a new old location, and it's kind of crazy. So first of all, how many times have you walked by? We were just talking to Matt, our producer, who lived across from Jim Dunn's for years, for more than a decade while it was closed. But how many times have you walked by Jim Dunn's and thought, what happens in there?
I just thought haunted.
Yeah, it was looking pretty haunted. You may recall in the movie Jennifer 8, one of the finest Jennifer movies, Andy Garcia is filmed in this bar, and there's a little plaque out front that says that a movie was filmed here. And this bar has been serving hooch up. And I say hooch because it wasn't always licensed liquor. They've been serving alcohol out of this place, but for its hiatus of about 25 years, for 100 years. It is wild. So long, or actually more than 100 years. Long ago, Jim Dunn's, or as I keep saying it in my head, Jimmy Dunn's, because when your name is that Irish, I kind of say it in this crazy Jimmy Dunn's voice. But anyway, Jim Dunn's has been actually down the street, just blocks away from the Healy Brothers building, which the Healy Brothers building, another historic building that had a comeback, a dozen years ago, 13 years ago, when they reopened the former Old Town, the Old Town Bar and Grill, which had a storied musical history. A lot of bands came and played there, reopened as the Siren Song Tavern. And the then owners, one of the owners, Phyllis Barbara, I recall, opened this thing up, and it ran, and it became a really steady location for not only a wide range of beers around the peak of fancy beer consumption, but also a real important music venue. Music, poetry readings, all kinds of things happen there. It became sort of a community hub and a performance hub in Eureka. But like all good things and good venues, it's really tough to run. And eventually they ended up selling it, and it changed hands just before the pandemic. And that is around the time when Liza Sibley came to tend bar there. And eventually, when she was working there, she sort of ended up de facto manager of the place and running it. And when the then owner, J.D. Pegg, left town, she was like, you know what? I'll buy this from you. She made an offer, and She and her business partner now, who is a commercial fisherman, and this becomes important. So Liza Sibley and her business partner, Quinn Clayton, take over the bar, and everything's cool. It's running along until the lease runs out. The lease runs out and they've got to move. And they're literally moving stuff across the street into some sort of a truck or whatever when somebody mentions to them, "Oh, did you hear that Jim Dunn's is being renovated?" And, you know, cartoon record screech, they immediately started checking it out and it looked like a good opportunity. Now, long ago, when Eureka was a rough and tumble town, A.L. Sawtell, a guy who made his money selling clothing, built this building and opened up the Bayview Saloon inside it. And that was in 1871. The exterior of the building has changed a tremendous amount. It is basically unrecognizable from what it was in the beginning. But the interior, including the bar that was added in supposedly in the 20s, although it's hard to tell, other people have said it's a turn of the century bar. But the bar that was installed with this gorgeous wood and stained glass accents and all kinds of wonderful embellishments, that was kind of a wonderful, beautiful craftsmanship example, right? And then Prohibition hit. So Prohibition comes, and then Jim Dunn buys it in 1921. It's already Prohibition. Why you're buying a bar, Jim Dunn? Because Jim Dunn is going to run a speakeasy. This place operated as a speakeasy throughout Prohibition with a cigar shop up front, a barber shop in the back, and booze in the middle. And it's one of the many open secret speakeasies that operated in Eureka. And we've had some really great news clippings that Liza had that include Jim Dunn getting busted for alcohol possession, one time paying a fine, another time not getting busted because the federal agent that they sent down couldn't identify him. Sounds like that was some pretty strong hooch. But there are all kinds of crazy stories. So they did this wonderful renovation. The owners of the building redid the bathrooms for ADA requirements and such. And also Clayton and Sibley did all this work on it, redid the floors, reinstalled the original brass rail that you've put your foot up on next to the bar. You have never felt so in your element as when you put your foot up on the rail of a bar, truly. And they brought this back and brought back the vibe of a Fisher's bar, basically. There's a wonderful painting that was already in the place of people hauling up crab pots. There are all these wonderful nautical paintings in the back, and it really does have the feel of a rough and tumble bar in a fishing town. And with that comes lore. Oh my God, Tanya, the lore. I went on to a couple of Facebook posts where people commented about, "Oh yeah, I remember this place," talking about Jim Dunn's, and the things that people were sharing, some of them were concerning. One person said, "Wow, what a bucket of blood that place was." Troubling. But a couple of the amazing stories that she shared with me, I'll share with you now just because they're too good. One was, she told me, "Yeah, so there's a corner and there's a photograph in the paper and online. The corner is chopped off of the end of the bar all the way in the back. And it looks just sloppily done. There's weird open seams. It's strange." And she said, "Yeah, supposedly the story was that some guy was drunk and stumbled out of the bathroom and clipped himself on the corner, like hit himself in the ribs on the corner of the bar. So he goes out to his truck, gets a chainsaw, comes back in, and just saws off the corner." And I said, "That's crazy." And she was like, "Yeah, and even crazier, they were talking to some people about it. And this woman who was there said, 'Yeah, my grandpa used to tell me the story of the time he cut the corner off the bar at Jim Dunn's. And he went to his truck and got a chainsaw and sawed it off.'" So
Again, that's strong hooch.
that is strong hooch. There were stories of a man who died in a stabbing, but took a shot just before he went down. There are a lot of wild stories out of that place. And the kind of interesting thing is, it was such a rough and tumble bar, right? And it still has, while I was talking to Liza Sibley, in fact, a crab fisher came in with crab to give to somebody at the bar. And I was like, wow, this is the authenticity you were looking for. And yet it is a very kind of a sweet, warm-hearted place in terms of letting in younger people. It now has a full liquor license with a full bar, and you can still get a $3 can of hams there, but they have all ages shows. And Sibley and also some of the band members that I talked to, folks who were playing there, they all kind of talked about how there just aren't enough music venues in Eureka, for one thing. And it's hard to run a venue, and those venues are struggling. But at the same time, there aren't really that many venues, even when all the bars were up and running a few years ago. There aren't that many places for an all ages show. And for Sibley, she talked about how this is important to have, for kids to be able to have an outlet, for younger people to be able to be connected to a music scene, to have something constructive in their lives. And so, interestingly enough, this rough and tumble bar has really become a place for a, a very inclusive community. And that includes, the metal band that's up on stage roaring into the microphone. That includes the punk band that's singing about corruption, and that includes people coming for open mic and playing for the first time ever. Sibley also pointed out that for bands that are just starting out, young people, this is how you learn the ropes. You don't necessarily have, right? There's no school. You can't just YouTube your way into figuring out how to play a gig at a bar. The sound engineer comes in and he helps you, the folks help you set up, and you really get a sense of what it's like for any other band. You really get a sense of what it's like to perform on the road or around town. And that's a really valuable thing. And it was just really beautiful to see people coming together. The band that played that night, Something Wicked, the night that I was at the bar, they played the last show at the old Siren Song, and they played for the first time this past Friday night. And they were saying, the vibe is the same. And each of the band members that I talked to all had the same concern. They were all worried when they thought the Siren Song was going to close for good. And they're just really happy it's back, and it's lovely to see.
It really is. And I encourage everybody to pick up this week's journal and read the story, all of the anecdotes. It's lovely. You did a fantastic job as usual.
Thank you. And you know what? People out there, if you have Jim Dunn lore, hit me with it. Either go on our website and get in the comments, or hit me up, email or online or whatever, because I want to know. I want to know all your Jim Dunn
Yeah,
stories.
we definitely there's more to be had. That's its own story right there. Is all the Jim lore out there.
And probably most of the statute of limitations has run out. So,
Probably.
yeah, feel free to share. It's fine. Who am I going to
And
tell?
when you guys have a free Saturday night or Friday night, time to get out to Siren Song.
Yeah, enjoy your local music venues.
And with that, we're going to move into some serious news. Kim Weir bringing us some full circle on our corruption story.
Yeah, we are right now in whatever Pisces moon vibe, Mercury and lemonade, whatever thing that we're doing. We are in a place of wrapping up old crimes, right? Old stories, and things are wrapping up. So we talked about the building permit scandals last time, or a couple weeks ago, and now it is time to talk about Humboldt County Fair embezzlement. You may recall that in 2022, the bookkeeper for the Humboldt County Fair Association and for a unnamed dance studio, nonprofit dance studio in Eureka, Nina Taffarella, she was sentenced for embezzlement, and it was quite a stack of charges. So a federal judge sentenced her on, I believe it was the 11th, yes, February 11th in San Francisco, to 15 months in prison for embezzling nearly $500,000 from her former employers, as well as 500, well, that breaks down to 500 in special assessment, finding she did not have the ability to pay a fine, and 481,000 in restitution. So it's tough, right? How do you pay back? How do you make restitution if you're in prison, etc.? She will also have 3 years supervised release after serving her prison term, according to this sentencing. You may recall that she was picked up in November of 22 in a local casino, and the charges were, I think it was 5 wire fraud counts, and she was charged in December. It started out when the dance studio found irregularities and contacted the police, and then she was also working for the county fair, and so the folks at the county fair were like, well, I guess we better look into this, and the feds came in and took over that case. And so the breakdown of the money, approximately 430,000 was taken from the Fair Association over 21 months, and 23,400 from the dance studio. When Taffarella spoke at her sentencing, she talked a lot about being extremely sorry about all of this, and about how she has a lot of regret and she feels terrible for it. She also has apparently struggled, according to the defense, and I don't think that this is a disputed issue. She's had some mental health issues and some substance abuse issues and addiction issues. So a lot was going on, and I'll be honest with you, with the depth that Kim gave this is not one of those things where, you know, you want to grab a pitchfork and go up to the castle to find Dracula. It is a kind of a sad story about somebody in a terrible state whose life was unraveling and doing a bunch of very messy crime. And when I say messy, I mean that when the defense, in fact, pointed out that this supposed sophisticated crime that she had committed, you might recall the way that it was done was really beyond elementary. Like, I'm a person who struggles to figure out the tip at a restaurant, and I actually understood this. It was pretty simple. It was described by the defense as easily discovered by an actual accountant who quickly concluded Miss Taffarella, quote, did not know what she was doing. So there's that. And then, boy, county fair taken strays in this defense too, because at one point the defense says, similarly, Ms. Taffarella abused her position as a bookkeeper. She does not deny that, but she did so at a public trust organization that was so severely mismanaged and underfunded that she was the only person who knew anything about bookkeeping. Ouch. I'll tell you what, I hope nobody ever discusses my poor finances this publicly and this rudely, but it is a bummer of a story. It is unfortunate that the fair suffered this way. It's an institution that Humboldt cares about and that, you know, is important for especially agricultural business around here and as a community thing. And so an already financially flailing institution really took a beating in this and lost a lot of money through Taffarella's embezzlement. And when you think about the sentencing, it's actually quite light, given that it could have been a maximum of 20 years and a fine of up to $250,000. And remember, that fine part of the charge was or the fine part of the sentencing was only about $500 because blood, stone, etc. So anyway, that is the wrap up on this story. Again, just grim all around, really.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, if you see any light in the story, hopefully this woman is able to get help, and that somehow we find a fantastic way for the fair to make that money back.
Yeah. Or if she's able to make restitution, that's the hope anyway.
Yeah.
So anyway, fingers crossed going forward, but that story is a wrap for now.
Absolutely. And thank you for Kim diving in there and getting us the rest of the information as the case concluded. And with that, luckily, we have a sandwich of ending on a better note. Jennifer wrote us a great piece about a side dish.
You know, you say a sandwich. What would go great with that sandwich would be some fries. I think we know I can't stay away from a food story for long. I recently had a wonderful experience upping my fry game. How are you? I want to know about your fry profile. I approach this like an FBI analyst. Please tell me about your preferred fry, Tanya.
Well, I prefer the steak fries, but they got to be crispy on the outside.
Interesting, interesting. In that case, I would send you over for the thick cut Belgian style fries that are twice fried, because that's the way God intended, over at Fatsy Klein's, where they have a poutine. The regular fries, excellent. $7. You're sitting there, you're having a mocktail, having a great time. I had like a hibiscus thing the other night. It was fantastic. But the fries with the gravy and the cheese curds, it is a moment to enjoy Canada, by the way.
Exactly.
The women's hockey team from the US and the Canadians. That's what I'm saying there. But anyway, it's fantastic and I strongly recommend. It's a good one to share, not because I don't think you can take it down. I believe in you, oh wonderful listeners and viewers, but it's best hot and crispy, and yeah, it's not going to be the same the next day. You got to take it down right there. The other thing is crab on fries. What? Crab on fries? Yes, crab on fries. Listen, is it like $35, $36? Yes, it is. But the luxury that you feel, I felt like, forget about, I have no interest in riding in a limo. I have no interest in popping champagne bottles. I want to eat crab with my fingers with French fries and Old Bay aioli at the Trinidad Bay Eatery. That's what I want to do. And I hope you get to, this is another one to share because it won't be the same the next day. And you got to take it down while it's hot and crispy.
Yeah, nobody should be eating crab the next day.
No. And and if you try to eat it alone, you won't enjoy those last bites. You'll be too busy trying to breathe.
Right.
Yeah.
And this isn't like a take it down in an hour and it's free. Share with somebody.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
But I really think this is a moment where not everybody can afford to go out and have a big fancy meal. I know it's tough out there. But if you can go out and just have like a really good appetizer and catch up with a friend, I am strongly in favor of that. And these crab fries do it. The Fatsy Klein fries, poutine does it. Go and have a snack and chat with your friends.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. I completely agree and support that. And that wraps up our time for this week. The current edition of the North Coast Journal will be available on newsstands tomorrow. Pick up your copy. It's fresh. It's more square.
It is more square.
But of course, you can always find it online. It is hip to be square. And it's also on your little squares at northcoastjournal.com. I am Tanya Schrum, before this falls apart more for my producer. Thanks for being with us and staying informed and supportive of our North Coast.